Sif, there we go. Sif Beis Siman Pei. So we're talking about different halachas of Shabbos. We spoke about yesterday about the problem if you have a candle and you're going to end up trying to read something small, you're going to end up tilting it, etc., etc. We spoke about different types of modern candles and lights and how that would work. And now we come to another point in Sif Beis, which is Asur liftayach delas oy chaloin neged ner doilik kishehu karev lahem. You're not allowed to open a door or a window when you have a candle that's right there. And the brief from the Alter Rebbe, neged psichas hadelas mamish, if it's right in the space of when you open it. Why? So again, they bring from the Alter Rebbe, be'inyan shekesheyiftechu hadelas. What would happen was when you're going to open up the door, yuchol mitoves im yenashe beruach mibachutz. Then the candle will go out if the wind is blowing. In other words, like this. There's different types of sfekis and gramas and all that. Here, what the Alter Rebbe is talking about is the type of situation where if you open the window and there's a wind blowing, for sure the wind will put out the fire. In other words, the whole suffix is only if a wind is blowing. It's not that, if you have candles on your table and you open up the window, so it's a suffix, if the wind is blowing or not. And even if the wind was blowing, Lav Dafka is going to blow it out. It's far enough away from it. People have fans in their house and the candles don't go out. So it doesn't mean that it will. So that's a different type of suffix. What he's talking about here is that it's so close to the window or the door that the suffix is not on you. The suffix is only if the wind is blowing. If the wind is blowing, it's going to blow it out. It's like, and therefore it's another geder of a suffix, and that's why we would say you shouldn't do that. And that's like what we call koyach rishon. In other words, it's not removed from your action. It's almost like direct. You opened the window and the wind was blowing and it blew it out. Now, not so similar to that would be running past it. So sometimes Hanukkah is probably more common where people have candles in doorways. So you have to be careful when you walk past it that you shouldn't be rushing. Now, if you walk past it, then it's okay. Why? Because walking past it, even though they flicker, but they're not getting bigger or smaller. They're not going lower. All they're doing is they're just flickering with the wind. They're moving, but they're not actually getting bigger or smaller. So walking past it is okay. You should be careful. If you're coming with a whole coat and it's going to make a big wind, obviously that's a problem. But running past it, really, you shouldn't do because it might go out in this way. However, let's say the window's open and the candles are getting like that. You are allowed to close it, even though in a way you could say, well, you're making the fire better. So it's true, you are making the fire better, but that's called menias hameniah. In other words, something was going to take away your candle, and you remove that from being able to do that. So that's not a malacha. That's not like you caused something. You caused the status to stay the way it was. So that's something else, and that's why that you could do. Now, similarly, what happens if you want to open it after the candles went out? You could do that too. We don't consider it muktzah. Muktzah means that you weren't able to use it during a certain time, right? During Bein Hashmasha. So here, we're telling you not allowed to open the window, then maybe it became muktzah. So it's not exactly like that, because the truth is that technically there are ways that you can do it in a heter way. Let's say you take a piece of paper or something and you block the candles and you open it carefully. There are ways that in theory you could do it without, or if the candle was a little bit farther, it's not mamish muktzah. So therefore, you could open it later after they already go out. Now, Pasach HaTanur. This is important because we learned a lot about bishul, putting stuff in ovens and stuff like that. So here he says something interesting. He says the door of an oven, and they want to talk about their ovens are different than ours, same idea. Sheyesh bo eish, that inside this oven is a fire, right? Or maybe it has coals that are still like, the embers of the coals are still like glowing. Yes, thank you. So asur bein liftayach bein liskar. So the halacha is you're not allowed to open it, and you're also not allowed to close it, right? You're not allowed to do both. Why? Because in both of these instances, you're going to be impacting the flame. Letting in the oxygen will either make the flame go bigger, or maybe if a wind comes in, it's going to put it out, and therefore you shouldn't. So our ovens, by the way, even though we spoke about different times that maybe you could put the things inside, but even a Shabbos mode, in all likelihood, in most cases, you really can't open it on Shabbos to put stuff inside. Now, it depends. Technically, if it's electric, and there's a light that's on, when you open it, it's already on, so it's not turning it more on. Maybe you could say that there's room to say maybe you could do it. But first of all, there might be stuff that are happening that you don't know. The light's not always accurate. Sometimes it could be on or off, and when you open it, it's going to turn it back on. Even though you see it red hot, maybe it actually turned off a minute ago, and now when you open it, you're going to let it air, and it's going to go back on. So it's really not a very simple thing to do that. And that's why Shabbos modes, most of them are really Yom Tif modes. They're not really Shabbos modes. Right? What it means by a Shabbos mode is that it won't impact the electricity, lights won't go on and off, the fan will stay the same, the temperature stays the same, but it doesn't mean you could open it on Shabbos, because as soon as you open it on Shabbos, you're going to be impacting it, which you shouldn't do. Now that's different than a refrigerator, which most people say you could do. It's beyond the scope of this, but basically it's not as much a strong of a deraisa. So the air conditioner, the refrigerator, and obviously you have to have a Shabbos mode or shut the light. But other than that, it's more removed where we could apply grama. When it comes to Isser deraisa of mavir, of actually lighting the fire or making the fire go on, so there it's much harder to apply any of these aterim. So there are some, you'll notice if they go to a refrigerator, you'll see they listen out for when the motor's on. When the motor's on, then they open it. So there are some who do that. But that's I think most places can today say you don't have to anymore. It was when the process of how it works with the thermometer and what you trigger and what stages and it's how far removed and so it looks like there's room to be lenient on that. But if someone wants to be machmir, I've seen people do that. Fine. Sif Gimel. Also, okay, so now we come to some of the stuff that we already did. Well, I guess that's if also we did a little bit about putting stuff inside the oven, but now we come to the stuff that we spent all our time on, so it should be easy. Also, lares reitiv reiteach al chatichos lechem ematzis. You're not allowed to pour boiling water over bread or matzis, right? Because we say that there is bishul achar afir. Now, it looks like according to the Alter Rebbe, it could be only the chatchila, but diavad it's not considered actual bishul. Okay, but either way, we see you're not supposed to take something straight from the urn, let's say, and pour it over something that was baked, right? Wait a second. Ella, what should you do? You should first take from the pot and put it inside. You can take them off, please. First put it inside. Well, clearly not. First put it inside a pot or a plate from the hot water urn. So now it's in a klisheni. Then v'yiskar k'tzas. And you have to wait until it becomes cool that you could eat it. And the Alter Rebbe says not just cool that you could eat it, but it has to be lower than even yatzei ledespa, which is basically 113. Because the klisheni, if it's still warm, we mentioned that there are some things that it could still maybe cook, like what do you call it? A different kali abishal. So even inside of this klisheni, you do want to be a little bit more careful. That you should make sure that it's really cold. Now we don't do that, by the way, right? We take from the klisheni and we put it into a klishlishi. That's what we do, right? We take it from that cup and we pour it into another one. So we go a step further. Now some people put coffee in there too, so that they'll hold there's no bishul in the klisheni, so which works. We want to be more machmir and say that maybe yes for kali bishul, so we go to a klishlishi. Now, and then if you wanted, once you had it in a cliche and it got cooler, now you can put your stuff in. But the whole time that the soup or whatever liquid you put inside is boiling, so then afilu hu bekaida, even if it's inside of a cup, you still can't put stuff inside. As we said before, Kali Abishal, we're choshesh for all these things, and therefore we don't want to do it. You had a question? Yes. Thank you for waiting. So good question. It seems like not. It seems like once we spoke about this. Once you're at a kli shlishi, it looks like that's the cutoff, and everything else after that is the same.
What's the difference between kli sheni and kli shlishi?
So in a kli sheni, we said in the Gemara it does mention the kli sheni is, let's say, a cup you take straight from the urn. There are some opinions that you could be machmer in certain areas, what we call kali habishul. So not liquid, not spices, not oil, not water. Those things we mentioned, if you put it inside, it won't cook. But other things, maybe like bread, maybe like other things that cook, easier, those might cook. So in a klisheni, there's room to be machmer, not to put stuff in. In a kli shlishi, we're already more makel. So that's what we do. We take from the pot into the cup. That's a klishin into klisheni, and then we pour it into another one. Either you put the coffee in first, so it's iri klisheni, which is good enough for us, or you put them in after, and then it's a kli shlishi completely. But either way, we take it that step further to help us in that area that we're not worried about kali abishal, basically. And by the way, there are some that are machmer, like we mentioned in the shiurim. That's what we said. They'll make what's called tea essence or coffee essence, which means they'll make it before and they'll keep it warm on top of the urn so that they just mix warm, and that's liquid, and that's the way they do it. So even in Chabad, there's room to be machmer, but most people, I think you'll see, don't do that. No, so you count three. The urn is one, the cup is two, the next cup is three. Then what?
Then it will be free.
No, that's it. You can put your coffee in that second one. How do you make tea or coffee? You make tea or coffee on Shabbos? Not for yourself. Do you serve your guests? Start. Yeah.
Would it be better to, that you're making a pour over coffee, would it be better to put in the third second cup and then pour?
So that's what I right. So I did mention. I think it seems like after Klisheni, it's the same. Iroi and what do you call it? Be the same.
It's not really.
I know. So as I'm saying, after Klisheni, it moves into the category of Klishlishi. It doesn't again. Every single keli has two things we said. The fnoisa of the walls keep it hot, and it hasn't cooled off by anything else. So if a pot is on the fire, number one, the walls keep it hot because it's the walls themselves are hot. And also, nothing else was added to cool it off. It never went into another. Like every time it goes into another keli, the energy is dissipating by more materials. Right? If you take something boiling and you put it into another cup, so some of that heat goes into that second cup. Very little sometimes, it's still boiling, but a little bit does, and it loses the strength of it. So the first Kli Rishon had both. Then you put it into Kli Sheni, and now you're losing both of those. It went into a second Keli, number one, and it wasn't cooked inside. Now, there's still reason to be machmir, so therefore you pour it out. But once you pour it out, now you took it out of that Kli Sheni, and then it looks like it's all the same after that. I don't think so. Meaning, if you're being machmer, then make your tea essence. And if you agree that this is the way to do it, then it doesn't seem like you have to. Which is why people are, even a regular person starts to pour over. You ever see people that put instant coffee in their cup, and then they pour from the cup in there? It's the same thing. I'm saying pour over, you don't even have to go to pour over, even a regular instant coffee. What?
You said it would be better with coffee.
No, I didn't say that. In a klisheni, for those that are makel by a klisheni, they would say you can never have the coffee in first, because when you put the hot water from the urn, it's going to right away hit it and cook it. So they have to fill it with hot water. Then they put their coffee in. But for us, that we now go to the next kli, the third one, so it looks like it doesn't matter. You can put your coffee in first, then pour it over, or pour it in after, and pour over. It's all the same thing. Yeah. Again, and if you want to be machmer, then make your tea essence, which people do. Sorry. Yes.
You or into a cup that's cliche. That cliche, if you pour it into a little soup, the it would be enough because they're cliche.
Yes, that's what. Yeah.
Right, and you would not need to put it into another cup.
If you're going to be makel of a klishlishi, then that would include that stage. Most are. Again, you'll see some people that don't.
It's fine for Chabad.
Yeah, that's what most people do. Yeah.
Even if you're cliche.
Klisheni, klisheni is already good.
But there's no itself.
In other words, think about it like this: really, klisheni is not a problem. That's what the Gemara says.
We just want to be mach.
But we're machmir for kali abishul and other stuff. Fine. So, but once you take it out of that, so even before it goes into the klishlishi, you already took it out of the klisheni. So then that's already enough.
Okay, but also is the noodle soup itself, if you pour it in from the klisheni to the klishi.
Let's hold that up. There's different. To me, it looks very strange when people make noodle soups. There's different types of noodle soups.
Like would the noodle soup be the klishi?
Yes.
That was my question.
But that's the food itself, that's not the kli. That's a food that's getting cooked.
No, but again, you had your water in a klisheni.
Right.
You took from the urn to another one. As soon as the water leaves it, it's already klishlishi. So if it hits your ramen noodles, whatever it's called first, or if it goes into the keli first, it's the same thing.
Huh.
It would be the same thing. Thank you for your concern. I don't know. First of all, you have to know how it's made. Some of them are cooked before. So if they're cooked before, then the pashtus you could. First of all, the vegetables is another thing. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I never grew up. Okay, let's go further. If it wasn't cooked before, that's what I'm saying. Not all of them are cooked before. First of all, some of them they dry them in a different way. They don't actually. Okay, so if it is, then I wouldn't stop someone from doing it. To me, it looks very strange, but it's ein bishul achar bishul. I think it's changing. It's becoming softer, but it seems like it would be okay. I don't see why.
So you know. Like people
You could, right, but you could also eat pasta raw, technically. Okay, let's continue. Oh, thank you. Two of them. Wow.
Tea or water?
Okay, so let's go further. Says the Kitzur weiter. This we spoke about as well, which is that you shouldn't put even spices or salt into the reitiv, means the klirishin, into the actual food on the fire. Even spices you shouldn't put it. But afilu, and the Kitzur says afilu hu b'kaina. Even if you took the food out of the klirishin and put it in the klisheni, you still shouldn't put spices in. What does the Alter Rebbe say? That you could, remember? Yeah. Well, das Rabbeinu, the Alter Rebbe doesn't agree. He says tavlin spices, v'shum, even even garlic, upsalam, and onions, which are foods that are really spices. That's the ikr. L'toich klisheni mutter. The Alter Rebbe would say you could even put them into klisheni. So the Alter Rebbe's makel, we said, by spices, water, oil, and the other types of liquids, and these things as well. Now shubab tzalim, he put what? No, these are mentioned that they're not kali abishul. So that's why. One second. So that's why the Alter Rebbe is more makel. Now mikol shekei. Wait. Mikol shekei l'toich hakteira kozman tru reteach. Now according to the Kitzur, for sure you can't put it into the actual pot. You'd have to wait until it becomes cold. You could eat it. And the Alter Rebbe here is more strict. And he says, at this point. The Alter Rebbe says you should really never put spices in a klidishin, even if it's warm or lukewarm, but lower than 113. Why not? Because this is already a siyag. In other words, it's the actual pot that was on the fire. So even though until it's completely cold from the fridge, you shouldn't put anything inside. Now, what about a melech shenasai bishul? So we spoke about when we mentioned it, we said there's different types of salts. Some of the salts they cook first, right? They don't just harvest it from the ocean and leave it as is, or mountains, yeah? There are some salts that they cook from the sea water or whatever, and they extract and they crystallize it and they take it out. So over there, if you're talking about shenasa, they bishul yesh mekilin. Some people are makel, like we said, that even in a klidishin because it's already cooked. But v'amachmer gam bezeh tov labracha, the Alter Rebbe is machmer, and v'amachmer gam bezeh tov labracha, the Kitzur says it's best to be machmer, and the Alter Rebbe is machmer on this. If you remember, we spoke about that if the salt will melt and become a liquid again, that's a problem. So don't even put that into a klidishin. Don't even put that into a klidishin, even if it was already pre-cooked, because once it becomes a solid, he doesn't want it to melt again. Now let's want to finish this sip. Coffee, you also shouldn't pour from the coffee. Now you have to remember how they used to make the coffee. They would have a what we call like a chainik, or really there's another name for it, a samovar or something, where basically it has the grains or the tea or whatever it is inside of it itself. So the whole thing was cooking. It's not like you pour it over like we do. The coffee or the tea was inside the pot. So if you want to take from there and pour it into a keli, so im yesham sukkar, if you have sugar, when you're pouring it, you have to be careful because that sugar is in the bottom of a kli sheni. But when you pour it, you're pouring it from a kli rishon. So you have to know how to do it. We do it in a kli shlishi, but others would do it like we said, yaret chila. They'll first pour the coffee. That's a coffee vesati. Then they'll put the sugar inside after, because now it's in a kli sheni. And even that, remember, he said you shouldn't really do because it's a tavlin, and he wanted to be machmir by tavlin. The Alter Rebbe was mekel, but the Kitzur, the makom tzedek, he says you can do it. But we wouldn't have that problem. And all this really, according to Alter Rebbe, is going to be mekel anyways, because really he holds like the Rav Yah. Remember the opinion of the Rav Yah? We brought 3 opinions of what cooks or when it doesn't cook, and the Rav Yah said there's no bishul achar akiyah. Right, so really, technically, that's the ikar halacha. So, but fine. But either way, we don't do that. We always wait till the klishlishi to add everything, and that will pour over it from the klisheni, and that was okay.